Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Golden 20s podcast. My name is Sadie, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tegan. And today we are joined by a special guest, Justina Sadecki. Justina is a Canadian-based model and lifestyle influencer focused on body positivity, mental health, and wellness. In the past month, her Instagram following has jumped from 14,000 followers to just under 70,000 followers. We're excited to have her on the podcast today to discuss building a positive relationship with your body, boosting confidence, and balancing mental health with the pressures of social media. All right. Well, Justina, do you want to start by just telling us about yourself and, why and how you became a model and influencer, as well as like the journey that you've been on to get to where you're at today?
Oh my God, I don't even know where to start. Let's start with the fact that my parents are Polish immigrants. So I was born and raised in Toronto, and my first language was Polish. So I didn't speak English till I was like in grade school. And my family is extremely traditional and conservative. So I never really had any kind of dream to be a model. When I literally the first thing I remember wanting was to be an artist. And I grew up watching my mom have very negative body image and kind of talk about herself in a very negative way. And she was very controlling over how I dressed and what I wore to school. And I wasn't allowed to wear bikinis and stuff like that. So literally it started very organically. Me posting on social media was kind of me taking ownership of my body and kind of doing the stuff that I wasn't allowed to do for a really long time, which obviously my mom wasn't a huge fan of, and she still isn't really to this day. She doesn't make it a secret, but yeah, it started by me trying to be rebellious against kind of what I was brought up with. And then it turned into something bigger and something different than I expected, because a lot of people started to resonate with the fact that I don't fit the regular standard of modeling, in regards to being either very, very skinny or plus size. And a lot of modeling agencies have also told me hey, you're beautiful, but we can't sign you because you're too big to be regular model, and then in quotes, and too small to be plus size. So I didn't really fit in either of those categories. And that's what kind of pushed me to also continue to pave that road for myself and to advocate for myself and, be part of the representation of a variety of bodies. And I'm not saying that, I represent all women, but I feel like there definitely needs to be more women that are comfortable, being proud in their own skin and their own bodies, the way they exist. I feel like I'm going way over what the scope of the question was, but
no, that's perfect. What I loved about what you just said is how you were using social media as almost like a tool for self-exploration. I think that's so great. We talk a lot about social media on this podcast and how it can be so negative in a lot of ways, but then it also can be so positive and can be a great way to sort of explore, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you use it as a public kind of diary, though, I mean, obviously it has its pitfalls.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely see it as a medium where you can explore yourself and express yourself and kind of see how that feels and be hey, I like when I talk about this, and I actually maybe prefer not to go into that because that feels a little bit too personal,
Yeah.
Totally. And I think it's also connecting with other people, connecting, like you said, you felt kind of alone in just your body type, for instance, or you didn't feel like there wasn't a box that you fit in necessarily. So it's also nice that you're using social media to connect with other people who might be feeling the same way as you.
Yeah, thanks.
So what has been sort of in more detail your experience with body image, especially now that you are so in the public eye? Because I don't think it's a secret that everyone probably struggles with body image, but how is that now that you're so publicly viewed?
That's an interesting question, because my growth was also, don't get me wrong, I was posting pretty regularly for about 4 years. And the biggest growth that I've seen has happened in the last 2 months.
Right.
So like I went from
Mm-hmm.
14K to almost 70 now in like less than 2 months. And I'm not gonna lie, like
That's amazing.
I
Yeah.
that's what I thought at first too. But then
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie, like the last few weeks I had a bit of a like spiral because all of a sudden it felt like this like space that I cultivated and I like put so much care and like passion into was invaded by like all of these strangers who just
Mm.
like felt entitled to comment on my body and the size of my whatever parts of my
Yeah.
body and what they thought about it and calling me a prostitute and like so many different things, like hundreds and hundreds of comments that I was like honestly shocked
Mm.
because I never dealt with that before. So like I'm not gonna lie, like it is challenging to be in the it's challenging to be visible
Yeah.
because then everyone thinks that they're like they have access to you or they feel entitled to share their opinion with you in regards to like who you are and they don't know anything about who you are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But it helped me to take some time the last few weeks to just like take a break, not look at the comments and just really try to focus on what my intention is behind all of it at the end of the day. And I mean, I know that life is short and I know that my body is the way it is right now. And like a lot of people would agree that, okay, maybe like conventionally speaking, this is, I look like a fit young woman, but I also know that like, I have PCOS. I have a bunch of different like health issues and like genetics on my side that, tell me a
Mm-hmm.
lot in regards to my future. And I'm fully aware of the fact that I'm going to probably be a lot curvier in a few years or like my body is going to change.
Mm.
And I just want to like be able to share it and like celebrate it as it is, no matter what state it's in. Even if like right now, like people are like, oh, you're just like what? I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about because people are like, oh, you're like the conventional like definition of beauty. And it's so weird because I don't see myself like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like I just want it to be a safe space where I can continue to express myself as I am and like the way I'm feeling. And I know that's going to change over time. And I don't remember what my point was.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
no, that's
No, that's
perfect.
okay.
I mean, do you have any maybe like tips or advice for especially younger people who are present on social media who are probably dealing with,
Oh my
you
God.
know, not on the same scale, I'm sure, but
Mm-hmm.
almost everyone deals with, negative comments, and it could be from people or like in your situation, strangers on the internet. What would your advice be for people like that?
I like literally want to like hover over them and take their phone and throw it into the river. But
Yeah.
I would say don't take it so seriously. I think I definitely like made that mistake as well, where I took
Yeah.
their word as Bible and I was like, oh my God, this like user 404X0 thinks that like I need to do more cardio. I'm like, okay, well, who is that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's hard because I do think that like social media is very addictive.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard not to be looking at it all the time. And when you are, it causes a lot of anxiety. So I would honestly
Mm-hmm.
recommend like do your best to like get to know yourself and see what else you're into other than being on your phone. Like
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I find my sanity in working out and lifting weights and like I have two cats that I like hang out with and I don't know, there's so much more to life than social media. Like my reasons
Mm-hmm.
for being on it the way that I am are like more aligned to business at this point. But
Mm-hmm.
in regards to like lifestyle, everyday living, and just like navigating your own body image and comments and that kind of thing, just like take it with a grain of salt.
Mm.
Realize that who you are is so much more than what anyone else on the internet could tell you because they literally don't know. Like only you know your own experience. You know what you've been through. You know who you are. Like don't let some strangers or even like a family member, because I know that a lot, I'm not the only one who's dealt with like, family members or like aunts or whatever that see your Instagram and they're like, oh, like, who do you think you are? Like, what is this? What is this prostitution? And it's like, hey, but they also don't know, what you're going through, and they're probably projecting their own shame or their own views about who a woman should be and all of that stuff. So just to sum it up, my main points of advice would be, don't take it so seriously, be present in the moment and like try to enjoy life as it is outside. I know that it's like hard because there's a lot of like really scary things going on, but I do think we also like dictate our own experiences, and we can create experiences for ourselves that, I don't know, COVID is, we're all aware of like the crazy stuff that's been happening the last few years. And I myself am trying to dig myself out of various holes. So I just like, I would like to be transparent as well online about how, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. Like it's really hard, right? And that's another side too, is like, I don't want anyone to ever look at me and be like, oh, she's got her shit together, or like, oh, she's like beautiful or has this, and I'm sure she's like so happy. It's like, no, like I'm very much single and traumatized and like dealing with my own like wounds and stuff. And I kind of, that's one of my main messages too, is that like, everybody, no matter what, is going through something really hard that you don't know about. And obviously that looks different for everybody. And sorry, I feel like this is like a really long run-on sentence right now. I'm going to shut up.
No, I think that is so, so true. And honestly, it's so easy to forget that the person on the other side, if it's an influencer, no matter how big their following is, that they're a real person, like there is definitely that screen that separates you. And I think that's why people feel empowered and why it's okay to say these things to people that they likely wouldn't actually say to somebody in the flesh, because it's just, sending a message and it doesn't feel like it's actually reaching another human on the other end of it. And I think what you're saying is it is, and that negativity really can wear somebody down, and it can really impact their mental health. And I think too, for us and like living in the world that we live in now, it's also a huge goal for a lot of girls, especially young girls, to become social media influencers, because you only really see the glamorous side. You see those brand trips, you see the free PR, you see those followers growing, and it just seems so aspirational. But there is a whole side of it that doesn't always get like light shed on it. So honestly, thanks for being so transparent about it, because I feel like that side is there and you don't realize it until you're experiencing it. And like you said, it's then you're kind of questioning, oh gosh, I'm so proud of my growth, but I wasn't expecting all of this to come along with it, So you already kind of talked about, working out being a way that you disconnect, but what are your other kind of go-to ways that you personally disconnect from social media? You shut off your phone and you really prioritize your mental health and your self-care?
I definitely like to, this is a very boring answer, but literally like my idea of relaxation is like stay in and like watch a bunch of RuPaul's Drag Race and eat a bunch of food and just like not really go on my phone, light some candles. That's literally it. Like I don't really, literally is just like veg out, lay down and like just disassociate or stare at the ceiling for 3 hours. That's the best.
And like Drag Race of all shows, like the ultimate like feel good hype up show. I think that that's perfect. I can see that for sure.
Yeah, no. And I also feel like I'm inspired by them too. Like I feel like queer, especially like there's, for example, like lots of like queer Black men on the show, and like they've been through so many obstacles in their lives and to get to where they are. And I don't know why. There's a part of me that relates to that. I know I don't have the same experience at all, but yeah, there's something about the like LGBTQ plus community that I like really feel connected with as well.
Awesome. So you kind of touched on this, but when it comes to influencers, I find that certain ones sort of create unrealistic expectations of what life really is. So how do you personally balance that and decide what to post? Because there is an element of, you follow influencers because you want to be inspired, but
Mhm.
at the same time, do you feel that there is almost like a moral obligation to be honest about like what's going on in your life, or like how are you navigating that?
It's an interesting question, but honestly, I think I'm just very transparent with
Mhm.
my day to day. Like, I don't just like, so I do obviously have like analytics and stuff that I can look at, and I can see which
Mhm.
posts perform the best, which ones people
Mhm.
like, you know, engage in the most. So I'll try to like have at least one of those every week to be consistent and just kind of give the audience what they're waiting for. But at the same time, like I'm very like, I guess, emotionally in tune with myself on a day-to-day basis.
Mhm.
And I, you know what, I feel very like called to like share. It's kind of literally like my public diary a little bit sometimes. Like it usually happens spur of the moment. Like if I have emotions that are like a little bit too big feeling. I was also diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, so we could talk about that for like 3 hours. But one of the things that characterizes that is your emotions feel very, very big
Mhm.
and very, very heavy. So I think that's one of my ways of actually coping with it, which some
Mhm.
might argue is not a good way of coping with it, is to post it on social media. But a lot of people resonate with it. And
Mhm.
so it's
Mhm.
not, to answer your question, it's not really something that's super staged. It is literally
Yeah.
something that, it's a day-to-day thing. I'm just like living life, being a human being, and then something happens or like someone cuts me off. That's not actually what would happen. But like, let's say like I have a really bad day at work and
Yeah.
everything in my life feels like it's falling apart. I'm not gonna like just be posting all happy stuff and
Mhm.
acting like that's my life, because I'll be transparent about what's actually going on. Because you know what? Like I went through so much time feeling so alone.
Mhm.
It would have helped me as a young woman to see someone be like, hey, I'm feeling this too. You're not crazy.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh, okay, that's such a relief, because like I was growing up when it was like HSM and like J14 magazine. And like, I don't know why, but at that time, it just felt like there was no one really to look up to that was relatable,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
honestly, I feel like I could do a better job. Like, I feel like I could probably do a better job of being more transparent, because like the way that I post photos and stuff, like I feel guilty because like my photo shoots and stuff that I do, like that's not me on a daily basis. Like literally my feed is maybe me like 5% of the time.
Right.
So I've been really
Mhm.
called to, like, I feel drawn to sharing more of my like mundane and like everyday, like me sitting, you could see my rolls, like all of that, because like that's real life. Like this
Mhm.
photo shoot stuff, like that's fun. And like I love to like create concepts and like stylize stuff and like edit it. And because it's a whole process. Like I think a lot of people don't know that I actually like do a lot of that stuff from like start to finish. Like I'm not
Mhm.
just like a model. I also like edit everything, or like I get all the like clothes and props and everything together.
Mhm.
But I forget what I was supposed to say at the start. What were you asking?
No, that's perfect. I mean, I think you do a good job of towing the line between, obviously, like a lot of your shots look like professional. And I
Yeah.
think that like there's an understanding as viewing that. But then I also find that a lot of your content is real and honest, like more than a lot of people that I follow, at least from my perspective. I guess everyone's feed is different. But
Yeah.
and I feel like that kind of stuff would resonate with people. I don't know, like, or at least it resonates with me if I'm scrolling through my feed because, I see 10 beautiful people in a row. And so it's
Mhm.
like I connect with the person who I feel like is a real person who I could, hang out
Yeah.
with. That's the
Yeah.
kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. I think
Yeah.
I also see it through like a lens of like, oh shit, like I'm really hard on myself as well. And I
Yeah.
want people to know that as well, because I think a lot of us are.
Yeah.
Totally. And I
100%.
think like your position is really finding the balance between, still that aspirational content, but still the relatable and real content. So it definitely is
Mhm.
like a tricky spot to be in. But
Yeah.
yeah, like Tegan said, I totally echo that. I feel like you're doing
Mhm.
well. And I also want to say too, like, you have to be so vulnerable, like sharing your stories.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you do that because I can't even be vulnerable like on dates, never mind on like the
Yeah.
internet where
Yeah.
literally anybody can see it, you know? So
Yeah.
I think that's really brave of you. And I feel like, you know, just hearing you talk about it, you're so confident about it, like being like, I know somebody can relate to this. And I know like the way I message it, like, I know I can tackle this topic or whatever it is. So where do you
Yeah.
get that confidence from? Is it just knowing that somebody out there will resonate and you know what it feels like to feel alone? Or where does that confidence come from?
Am I allowed to swear?
Yes, of course.
I think it's kind of like a fuck it mentality. But
Yes.
ironically, that comes from a very, very dark place. I can like, I don't mind sharing because this is like, I could wear this on my sleeve if I had to, but I've had a few very, very dark rock bottom moments where I like had like suicidal ideation and everything seemed very bleak. And I don't think you fully understand like depression and like how important it is to get help until you're in that very dark place yourself, or you've seen someone very close to you in that place. So I have been in that place a few times, and getting out of it and like consciously making the decision to keep going and being like, you know what, like I'm going to make decisions for myself and I'm going to do everything it takes to maybe not be happy, because I feel like happy is not a very realistic goal, but to, you know, just I don't know even how to explain it with words, but there's something so like almost exhilarating to like come out of like almost a near-death experience and be like, you know what, like it doesn't really matter, you know? And
Totally.
and experiencing that also like made me feel okay, like holy shit, there's people out there that are dealing with this on a daily basis. Like that's freaking insane. Like I like, and I like, and it's like an intense amount of pain that I don't even know how to explain to someone, you know, who hasn't dealt with it. So yeah, it's just like that kind of pushes me forward, as weird as that might sound, because it comes from a very dark place that a lot of people don't like to talk about. It makes people very uncomfortable. And like, I am a little mindful of that. And I try not to bring that up too much, because people are like, oh, are you okay? Like, am I going to call 911? And I'm like, no, like, no, just listen to me, you know, like, but yeah, that's where that comes from, honestly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that, like you said, even if it is something that's maybe uncomfortable, I think it is important to talk about. And if that's what motivates you, like that's amazing, you know? And the fact that you were able to pull yourself out of that and you use it now as motivation to keep creating content, to keep connecting with people. So people who have maybe similar feelings as you did, I think like that's so admirable and you should be like really proud of yourself.
Thanks. Can you tell that I've been to a lot of therapy by how long I talk? I'm like, holy shit. I feel like I do my own therapy. And the therapist just sits there and I'm just figuring out the answers to my own problems. But anyway.
That's so funny. That's what this podcast is for Tegan and I. Honestly, it's just like us spilling all of our thoughts and feelings every single week. It is so therapeutic. It's just like an added bonus that people actually want to listen to it.
Yeah.
Because we're like, at this point, we're just doing it. Yeah, we're just doing it to get this off our chest. So you can come back anytime. You just need a long-winded rant.
Yes.
Oh my God. No, I love it.
Awesome. I mean, so kind of changing topics, like you said, you've grown your following in like a crazy amount in such a short amount of time. Could you talk a little bit about what, like, were you planning on always like aiming to be, you know, an influencer? Or was this just something that like something randomly blew up and you were like, okay, no, I'm going to follow this? Like, how did this all happen?
Definitely to some extent planned. And to some not. Because obviously, like, I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I created a vision board a few months ago. And on it, it says 100,000 followers, along with some other things, like picture of I don't want to like spill it all because I feel
Yeah.
like there's going to be someone listening to this who's going to put out bad energy or something. Or like
Yes, we're not
curse it.
jinxing the vision board. Yes, no need to
No.
get into details.
But no, that like I literally, that's all I could focus on was 100K, 100K, 100K. It was like tunnel vision.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because originally I was like 50K. Like 50K is like the big goal.
Mm.
And then someone was like, no, you need to say 100K because then you're going to for sure beat it. You're going to at least hit 50K, you know, if you say 100 in your head. And then I was like, okay, so how do I do this? And I started to literally just analyze social media and the patterns, and like literally it just forces you to stop being a grandma and be like, okay, like you have to pay attention to like, it's constantly coming up with new tools. There's constantly like, for example, reels are relatively new, right? And the only reason I swear to God that I blew up is because of reels. Like my one reel, the one that started it all was like this 4-second clip of me. And that morning I literally just opened my drawer and I was like, wow, I have so many bikinis. Let me take a video of me wearing all of them and then just did a quick transition. It was like really just lighthearted and I didn't put too much thought into it. And then after I posted it, nothing really happened. And then 3 weeks later, my phone started to blow up. That video blew up.
Wow.
And so for someone that wants to grow, obviously, like I was doing all of the stuff that like we're told to do on like as content creators, which is like use hashtags, post consistently, post on stories. But it wasn't until I started using like trending audios on Reels. So basically when you see an audio at the bottom and there's like an arrow going up, that means that audio is currently trending. And especially if it has under 10K uses, that's like a trick. Like another social media manager like told me that. I started using a few of those audios, and then literally like 2 out of the few that I've done like blew up. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's basically like, if you want to grow content and stuff, you have to learn to work smart, not hard, because I was working hard for like 4 years. And then literally I just like switched up my strategy a little bit. And in like 2 months, it literally exploded, which was kind of scary because I'm like, wow, okay, this is a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
How do I want to use it? So I want to be a little bit more intentional with that because as you can probably imagine from like a 4-second video of me in bikinis, like there was a lot of men there, which is not necessarily my target audience. So yeah, anyways, that's some tips that I would say for like, in terms of growing in a very short time, is pay attention to, what's changing the apps. Like if Instagram gives you a new tool, or like TikTok or whatever it is, like use it. It's there for a reason. And yeah, just like be open to change and like adapting. And like, I think that one big part of success is definitely being adaptable.
Yeah, definitely. And what are, like, don't get into specifics if you don't want to jinx it, but what are your like goals, or where would you like to go in the future as far as like your account or your career? What are you working towards?
Oh my gosh. So my dream was, and this is actually like, so this is what I've been wanting for like at least the last like 5 years, which was by the time I'm 30. So I'm turning 26 in like 2 weeks. I wanted to build a platform and a community where I won't need to work a 9 to 5. And I think that's a pretty common theme with a lot of people right now. I think people are waking up and they're like, I don't want to be tied to any corporation. I want to do whatever I want when I want to.
Yeah.
But I've had that feeling for a very long time. Like I knew for a very long time that I wouldn't be one of those people who has a job and a house, and I go to work to an office and I come home and I just do the same thing every day for like 50 years. Like that's not me. So I always kind of looked for like very unconventional ways of like having my freedom and my like liberation and getting my money in my own way. So my goal for my account would be to, be able to have a stable income from it, build a community of like-minded individuals. And I would love to have my own brand. Like I would love to at some point have like a clothing brand for a variety of body types, possibly bathing suits. And then eventually I want to have art workshops because I am trained in fine art as well. Like I paint. But that seems like a more like later in life thing for me, I think. I think right now there's like a lot of exploration online, and I never saw it as like a materialistic or like I don't even know how to say it, like model-y kind of thing. Like
Right.
I'm doing it because I see so many opportunities. I think that Instagram and like social media can open so many doors. You can network, you can meet so many people. Like I want to move to like California or somewhere really warm, and that might be happening, relatively soon just because of this, account,
Yeah.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think people should be also like mindful of how it can be such a huge like doorway into so many different like opportunities and situations.
I love that, especially since we spent pretty much the entire episode kind of shitting on social media, shedding light on the, dark side of it. I think that's such a great, thing to throw in is like how it does open those doors up for people and for people who feel like just like an average person. You know what I mean? Like now
Mhm.
more than ever, just everyday people like you and me are living out their
Yeah.
dreams because of social media. So it's like, yes, of course,
Yeah.
there is that dark side, but it's also so liberating when a 9 to 5 doesn't feel fulfilling for you. It's so, exciting to not know what's next, but just know you're continuously growing and the sky's the limit kind of thing. So I think that's
Yeah.
definitely, I'm glad you brought that up too, because that was actually going to be one of my questions was what's your favorite part of social media. And I think you've already answered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And connecting to people, obviously. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, like kind, the people who like share kindness and like encouragement like literally keep me going. There's so many people that like reach out on a consistent basis and they're like, oh my God, like I love what you're doing, you're killing it, keep going. I'm like, oh my God, okay, maybe I won't stop,
Yeah.
because obviously in the last few weeks with all of this happening, I did have moments where I was like, shit, okay, like is this actually what it was, like a careful what you wish for kind of moment.
Mhm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
truly had a moment where I was like, I'm not sure if this is what I want to do,
Yeah.
but that kind of
Mm-hmm.
brought me down to earth. Like there obviously is always going to be negativity everywhere, but there's also like so much light and there's so much good. And like, I do think that sometimes it is a matter of just like literally looking for it and
Mhm.
choosing to look at that side. Cause it's like way too easy to be negative. Like it's scary how easy it's to be negative. Like I
Mhm.
know that
Yeah.
firsthand.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, was there anything else that you wanted to like bring up and chat about on this episode?
No, I mean, this is a whole other topic, but I would love to talk about dating in today's world because that freaking sucks. But that's a whole other day, a whole
Yeah.
other time.
Yes, we'll definitely have to have you back to talk about that because we have a few dating episodes here and there, but it is just a whole other thing. I'm curious though, like since blowing up, has that impacted your dating life at all? Like have people recognized you on like I'm like assuming you're on dating apps or something. I feel like everybody in the dating world right now, that's how you like meet people, but have you had any like
Yeah.
weird encounters that way or is it all just kind of the other dating woes of being a single woman in
Mm.
2022.
I actually haven't been on a dating app in quite a while,
Yeah.
but I have had like men DM me because of certain things that went viral. But like, I feel like the kinds of men that were like being attracted to those weren't very high quality.
Mm.
So
Yes, I know
yeah.
when you were talking about the community you want to grow, I was like, let's just weed out all those men that we know are DMing you from like all the reels that are blowing up. Let's just be like a girl gang, like
Yeah.
empowerment
Mhm.
group here because that's definitely the
Yeah.
community
Safe
that
space.
you're
Yeah.
wanting. Yeah, that safe space and just like lifting each other up. The like feeling of watching RuPaul's Drag Race, that is what you're trying to cultivate.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to say, like, I do want to be part of like the community and the growth towards, women feeling more of like a sisterhood towards each other
Mm.
versus feeling competitive and
Mm.
feeling like there's only a certain amount of success and love and like money to go around. Like there's enough for all of us. Like there's enough for
Mhm.
all of us to, coexist and to like love and appreciate each other. And I think we have so much work to do with that. just because obviously like with men, there's also women that hate on me, but like, I think, we have a long way to go, but like, I want to be a part of that. And I'm feeling optimistic about the future. And I don't know, I think it starts with each and every one of us. And I'm going to stop being cheesy.
I love it so much, though. I think you bring up such a great point. Is like, why are women so competitive? Like, it's mind-boggling, Like, of course, there's enough like money to go around. There's enough success, enough, like we can all do this together, and we can do it a lot better if we like help each other get there, and if we're like cheering each other on and supporting each other. So, I love that so much.
Yeah.
I think that's all the questions we had for you from our end. Do you mind just maybe letting our listeners know where they can find you, like on Instagram and whatnot? We'll link everything in the show notes, but if you just want to do a quick little shameless plug.
You can find me mainly on Instagram at justina.sadecki. I'm also venturing into TikTok, but I am not a regular and I do not have really a following, but same username. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll likely find out about every other place you can find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I feel like it was very insightful, and you are a very inspiring person in the way that, I don't know, I find your view on things very refreshing and very real and honest. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you sharing that with us and all our listeners.
Thank you for the free therapy session. And I'm so sorry. You guys are just sitting there smiling while I'm like trauma dumping. And I'm like, oh my God. Wow. They're like, oh shit. Like, what if we are we sure this was a good choice?
No, this was exactly what we wanted. Like, thank you for being so vulnerable, because like Tegan said, it just makes it so much more relatable, and like, I think it's hard to be vulnerable. Like, I know I've already said that, but like for me, it's one of the things I struggle with the most. So like hearing your story and how open you are about it is just like so amazing. Like, honestly, thanks for sharing everything you did.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me a platform to talk and share my story, and for giving other people that opportunity as well. I think it's really awesome.
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and a special thank you to Justina for joining us on this week's episode. As per all other episodes where we interview someone, all of their information will be in the bio. So be sure to go check out Justina, especially on Instagram, to see the content that we've been talking about and to give her a follow. You can also follow us. We're at Our Golden 20s, and we're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, Spotify. And we also have a Patreon community, which is the best way to show your support for the podcast. Make sure you are following us and subscribe to us so that you see when the new episodes drop every Tuesday. And thank you so much for listening.